Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? This is Enrique Sanchez of Spanish United. Today we have a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Hi, my name is Ardy Kassakhian. I'm currently the mayor for Glendale, California. I serve on the city council here.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Mayor. I truly appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, after too much effort, I finally able to get a hold of you. And again, I really appreciate you having being here on the show. So I'm going to try to make this interview quick as much as possible as your request. So part of the question I wanted to ask you, as mayor, how would you describe Armenian Hispanic relations in the city of Glendale? Just try to answer to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I think that obviously Glendale has a very long and deep-rooted Hispanic past and history. It was originally a part of a Spanish land grant to the Verdugo family, which is where you see the name Verdugo all over Glendale comes from. It was known as the Rancho San Rafael, and the oldest structures we have in Glendale are the adobes that still date back to the late 18th century.
Mhm.
Uh, and then after that, you've had various different groups. I mean, it's funny because when you say Hispanic, it can mean a number of things, right? It's mostly Spanish speaking people,
Right,
people from Latin countries. It could be people from Spain.
right.
And in Glendale, at one point, you also had a very large Cubano population, people from Cuba.
Hmm.
Why we have some amazing Cuban food and Porto's Bakery. Of course, in California, when people say Hispanic, what most frequently comes to mind is the Mexican heritage of
Hmm.
this area in this region. And then over the course of the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way to today, you've had a steady influx of Armenian American immigrants. And, I think that there's been many areas of positive collaboration and working together. And then there's been times when there have been instances that, have put not necessarily the communities at odds, but individuals within the communities sometimes at odds with one another, as happens in most places where two immigrant cultures come together, or in a place, that could be anywhere from New York City to different parts of LA to even here in Glendale. But
Hmm.
for the most part, there's been always a good relationship. I know I personally have a very good relationship with the Latino and Hispanic communities. We have the Glendale Latino Association that we work with very closely. In Glendale, we have public schools that teach dual language immersion programs where kids learn every subject in two languages, and we have it both for Spanish and we have it for Armenian. Um, Now, Armenians outnumber the Latino or Hispanic community in terms of numbers, but they're not a majority. Armenians constitute about 40% of the community here in Glendale. But
Hmm.
in terms of the Latino community, it is still around and very vibrant, and they're a very important part of the overall culture here in our city. Uh,
Hmm.
and so we've had, we just last year we had named, I think was it last year or maybe the year before, we renamed the community room in the police department after Rick Reyes,
Oh,
former
nice.
of the first police officers of Hispanic descent. But he was also one of the few police officers that went on to be a council member and mayor for the city of Glendale. And Rick's always been a dear friend, and it was a privilege for me to make that motion and see the city police community room named after Mayor Rick Reyes.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Because one of the things that we do in Spanish United is that we're involved in outreach for the homeless, advocacy for Hispanic community, and advocate for Hispanic rights and civil rights. But also, we encourage working with other groups, particularly in interracial, intercultural relations, because I feel that it's very important to dispel any stigma or any prejudice any group of people have towards others, is reaching out to one another. Like I've been living in Glendale for almost 12 years, and I've been trying to reach out to many members of the of the Armenian community, but it's been unsuccessful. And one of the things that we do is that we want to reach out to the Armenian community to do outreach with them, work with them with events, cultural events, and also to create a better, harmonious relationship between Armenians and Hispanics in the city of Glendale.
Yeah, that's great. I think that, when we talk about working with other groups, I think it's great for all groups to work together. I think when we step out of our comfort zone, whether it's in the Armenian community or the Hispanic community, or even in, the African American, Asian American communities, whatever your group or your tribe that you most closely associate with, it doesn't matter who your collective is, who your network, your village, that you feel most comfortable, and I mean village in a kind of amorphic like term,
Right.
which you interact with, you realize that there's more things that connect us than divide us, right? More things that make us similar to one another than different. My wife is someone who's of 3/4 Hispanic heritage. Her father's side is half Spanish, half white. Her mom is full Mexican. And I think that having being married to her, having been in a relationship with her for many years, I've seen so many of the things that are very similar to Armenian culture, which is faith, family, hard work, the value of traditions in the household. And so it's, I think, beautiful that when groups are able to work together, and I would advise you that if you haven't been successful, keep trying and try new things. Go to the places where you can have the most success, like at Glendale Community College, where you have a very diverse campus and you have people of all backgrounds together.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great things about Glendale is that we're very diverse, over 50 languages spoken in the city. More than half of our residents, 51% of our residents, were born somewhere other than the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about how America, how it is and where and how many opportunities there are, think about this for a minute, right? Anyone in Glendale, including yourself, who's been here for what, you said 12 years?
That's correct.
Yeah, you could have made any community in America your home, but you chose Glendale, just like I've chosen Glendale. So that right there already unites us in something that we can agree on, that this is a place where we want to make a future for ourselves and our loved ones.
Mm. My mother chose Glendale
I think
primarily
that,
because it's very safe.
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying that my mother chose Glendale primarily because it's very safe, very clean. At the same time, it is conveniently located between Los Angeles and the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, you just already gave the pitch for Glendale that, I would give to any marketing expert and say, why Glendale over anything else? You're close to downtown, you're close to the valley, you're close to the San Gabriel Valley. You can be anywhere within a few minutes, and you're absolutely right. We do work very hard to make sure that our streets are well taken care of, our neighborhoods are clean, that we are a city, but with a small town feel where you get to know your neighbors. And so all those things are definitely what contribute to why people of all backgrounds and cultures make Glendale their home.
Mm-hmm. And the second part of the question would be, as mayor, what would you do differently in terms of housing, education, and services? Because a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, have gone through a hard time. And as mayor, like, what has the city done in providing assistance to those that have gone through hard times? That's the second part of the question.
Well, when the pandemic hit, the first thing we did was take a lot of our tax revenue money. We passed, the voters of Glendale approved the tax measure called Measure S, which was an increase on the sales tax on ourselves, specifically so that money would not go to the county and it could remain here in Glendale. And the reason for that is because without it, Glendale being the kind of nicer community in terms of housing stock and the neighborhoods and overall economy, we tend to be a city that pays into other cities for them to be able to address their challenges and issues, while sometimes at the cost of our own.
Hmm.
When the homeless, the measures were passed at the county level to address homelessness, Measure H and other like funds, those account for the city paying annually something to the tune of $10 million to the county for homeless services. We pay into this fund, and we only receive $200,000 of that back to Glendale to be able to address homelessness and other challenges. So seeing that, we decided to raise the taxes on ourselves. So we have the maximum sales tax that we can charge our residents and people who come to shop in Glendale. And that accounts for, all that money staying here within the city. And with that money, we're able to build more affordable housing. We just broke ground on a project on Pioneer, which will provide 340 units of affordable housing to seniors and to small families. We are going to be bringing online in the next year, 2 years, about 500 total units of affordable housing for seniors and, again, small families. We took money from our Measure S fund, that sales tax that I was telling you about, and we decided to provide it back to businesses that were struggling, as well as helping individuals out who were struggling with rent during COVID. And, we tried to do our best to make sure that, no one was taking advantage of that, when they didn't need it.
Right.
Because when someone takes advantage of a program like that without the need, they're taking that opportunity away from someone who does.
Absolutely.
So there are some of the things that we've done, the small grants to businesses to help them make it through COVID. We allowed restaurants to do outdoor dining and did away with some of the parking requirements so they could use their parking spaces and their customer parking for their restaurant patrons. And those are, we distributed meals, we worked with the county. It certainly was challenging, but I can assure you that as challenging and as hard as it was, sure, some businesses closed, some people were impacted harder than others, but for the most part, Glendale made it through the pandemic, I think, successfully with most of our businesses being able to survive that economic challenge. And similarly for our residents as well. I know some folks that may have not been able to make it through, but we try to help as many people as we can. We just can't help every single person.
Right.
We know every single person's challenges are unique and important, but we can't assume that everything is important, because if everything's important, then nothing is important.
Right. Yeah.
We try to on those areas where we have the most impact. And that's the biggest challenge in cities, is how can you do the most good and make sure that every single tax dollar goes the furthest it can go.
Right.
We have a growing senior population. That's going to be the next big challenge for the next 20 years, figuring out what we do with our seniors who are on fixed incomes. I know you and I are younger, and if we were to fall on hard times, we can maybe go back to school, we could pick up a new skill, maybe transition from one career to another. But if you're in your 70s and you've retired after a full life of having already worked professionally, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to school when you're in your 70s and try to find a new job? And if you did, for how many years are you going to work at that job? So
exactly, it becomes unsustainable.
Yeah. So those are the types of things we try to work on. And it's, not to say that we're perfect. Every city has its challenges, and every city can do better. But I can tell you that I believe truly that in Glendale, we do better than most. We take pride in our community. Folks take pride in living here. And anywhere I go in the state, when folks hear that I'm the mayor of Glendale, if they've been to Southern California and they visited Glendale and other cities, they're always very complimentary and congratulatory in how well run our city is.
Yes, a lot of people have told me the same thing, that Glendale is a very well-run city, and it's also the third safest city in the entire state of California.
Something like that. I've heard fifth. We're definitely in the top 10, and it's all relative. It's relative to our size. We're one of the safest cities for population of 200,000 and higher. So we are doing our best. But it's not just the city that makes the city safe. It's the residents themselves that make the city safe. So we have a lot of good people here. Folks who, like I said earlier, come from all over the world, choose Glendale as the place they want to make their dreams come true, and then they work hard at it. And we do have a population of people who we have population that's hardworking, takes pride in education. Our schools are some of the best in LA County. Public schools, that is, which means you don't have to pay extra to send your kid to family school. And all those things speak volumes to the overall health of our community.
Absolutely. And the final question, the third question would be, as mayor, how would you reach out to the Hispanic community in terms of getting them to be more inclusive in city government, in community work, and at the same time having them feel that they're part of the community at large?
So this was a big challenge we faced after the last presidential election, because when President Trump was elected, there was a lot of rhetoric, both, I believe, from the White House or people associated with the White House, but definitely from various segments of the American public that had supported his presidency, that were perceived and were actually very anti-immigrant, very anti-Latino, and especially immigrants from Mexico. I mean, you can just do a Google search and find all the articles and some of the quotes. And I believed it was very, not only was it unjustified, but it was also harmful in getting our Spanish-speaking residents more engaged in city government, because it forced people to be very concerned about their own safety and security, and the rise in deportations and ICE. One of the things that I wanted to do, and even prior to being on council and being mayor, was to make sure that the Latino community felt like Glendale was as much their home as it is anyone else's. If you live in Glendale, you should not feel like someone wants you to leave. You should feel a sense of belonging, and that doesn't matter if you're Hispanic or Armenian or anything. I want all of the residents that I serve to feel like they have a stake in the welfare and future of our city. So one thing that we did early on is the city of Glendale really hadn't had any big Spanish themed or Latino events. And we organized, with the help of some of our Latino activists, folks who I now consider very close and dear friends, people who worked in the library, people who worked in different organizations. Some of them work for Glendale College now. Students, community activists. We organized the first Dia de los Muertos event. But it was like, hey, we want to do something for Dia de los Muertos. We wanted to do something where the Spanish-speaking community came out and participated and felt included and welcomed. It just happened that when we were planning on doing this, it happened to coincide with the Dia de los Muertos festival, and we're like, oh, this will be very popular if we could do this and include food and music and exhibits and art and explanations as to what Dia de los Muertos is, and to people who aren't interested, because it's not just about doing an event for the Latino community, it's also creating these doorways of opportunity, having these mirrors and these windows, as I heard someone say the other day, where people can reflect and see what their community is about, but also see windows through which they can look at other communities. And this event has grown in popularity to the point where now every year we attract like thousands of people to it. We had a taco truck, a food vendor that actually made Middle Eastern and Mexican fusion tacos, like with falafels and shawarma meat and stuff, and burrito wraps and tortillas. It was pretty amazing. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And we're fairly soon we'll have the Cesar Chavez event, which is an important event. And hopefully that'll be an opportunity to bring people together. We have to remember Cesar Chavez was an incredible leader for organized labor and for the civil rights of so many Californians and workers across the country.
Yes.
And the United Farm Workers movement wasn't just a Latino movement. Some of the earliest organizers of it were also Filipinos, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
we
That's
we
very
have
true.
when we celebrate something and we learn about it, it's those moments of intersectionality where we see that our stories may be unique to us, but are maybe not as unique as we think, right? Because
Mhm.
there are other people who've gone through the same things that we have. And that's what makes, the human experience beautiful.
Absolutely. And I feel that when the city reaches out and does these types of events, it also brings different cultures together. Because I think it's very important that the city does their best to create harmony and to erase barriers. Because I feel that when you have a more harmonious society, you have created a more stable society. And like I said, that's one thing that we do in Spanish United, that we encourage not only inter-Hispanic relations with other Hispanic groups, but we also encourage intercultural, interracial, and interreligious harmony with other groups as well, because Hispanics are the largest demographic in the country, and many times we are invisible for many different reasons. And it's very important that we get ourselves out there and also to work together with other communities, particularly here in Glendale with the Hispanic and the Armenian community, to have a better solidarity and foundation, and work for a brighter future for both groups.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that, working together, the future does look bright, and I'm very hopeful that Glendale's best days are still ahead of us.
Perfect. I wanted to tell you, thank you so much, Mayor, for being on the show. I was able to do it within the time frame. I really appreciate it. So, for your listeners in the city and in the council who want to reach out to me or make a donation, which is complimentary but appreciated, we are on social media on Spanish United, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And as soon as I am done, I will send you the link, and you could share it to wherever you want to share it with.
Thank you, Enrique.
Have
All right,
yourself. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's been a pleasure talking to you and to your audience. And unfortunately, I'm getting the high sign that I have to run.
Sure.
But looking forward to our next conversation. Take care.
Definitely. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.